Welcome everybody to the Scene Snobs channel, and this is a very special episode where we are going to look into the life and discuss Roger Corman. He is a filmmaker that we have idolized here at the Scene Snobs for so long, and we truly appreciate his fascinating career. So join us as we get into it and we really celebrate the life and work of Roger Corman. Thanks. Today we spotlight Roger Corman, an influential filmmaker known for his unique ability to create compelling horror films on a shoestring budget. Let's explore the world of this legendary director and producer. Born in Detroit in 1926, Roger Corman started his career in engineering but quickly shifted to cinema. His passion for filmmaking led him to Hollywood, where he would become known as the king of the B-movies for his ultra-low budget, high-impact films. One of Corman's most famous films, The Little Shop of Horrors from 1960, was reportedly shot in just 2 days. This film exemplifies Corman's ability to maximize minimal resources to produce engaging and entertaining horror comedy. Corman's breakthrough came with a series of films based on Edgar Allan Poe's works, starring Vincent Price. These films, including The House of Usher in 1960, were made with slightly higher budgets and showcased Corman's flair for atmospheric psychological horror. Fact 1. Roger Corman famously shot The Little Shop of Horrors using sets left over from another one of his films, A Bucket of Blood. This kind of resourcefulness was typical for his approach to filmmaking. Fact 2. Corman's work ethic was legendary. He often worked on multiple films simultaneously and was known to complete shooting in a matter of days, sometimes even hours, which was unheard of in the industry. Corman's approach to filmmaking was not just about saving money. It was about innovation in storytelling, special effects, and marketing. His ability to create suspense and excitement on limited budgets influenced an entire generation of filmmakers. While initially dismissed by critics for their low budgets and sensational content, Corman's films have since recognized their artistic qualities and their clever commentary on societal issues. Roger Corman is not celebrated for his films, but also for his role as a mentor. He helped launch the careers of many prominent directors and actors, including Francis Ford Coppola, James Cameron, and Jack Nicholson. Corman's influence is evident in the independent film scene, where his do-it-yourself, can-do spirit lives on. His films are studied for their innovative production techniques and cost-effective filmmaking strategies. Roger Corman's career teaches us that creativity does not require a blockbuster budget. His legacy is defined by his boundless creativity, resourcefulness, and his significant impact on the horror genre and cinema as a whole. For his pioneering spirit and contribution to the industry, Corman remains a towering figure in the world of film. We just recently lost Roger Corman at 98 years old the past few days, and it leaves a huge impact on the film industry. Me personally, I love Roger Corman. He's one of my absolute idols in the industry. He is the reason I got into producing, and I absolutely idolize the man. If you don't know who Roger Corman is, I suggest you go out there and you look for the movies that he directed and the early ones that he produced and so on and subsequently after that. I love Roger Corman, and I think you will too. Welcome, everybody. This is a tribute to the king of B movies, the man himself, Roger Corman. If you've been paying attention all week, I've been talking about him a bit since his unfortunate passing. 98 years old, but he gave us so much. And Trevor and I came together and we thought it would be great to do sort of a tribute like this. And John is here with us. So we're going to talk about some of our favorite things, Corman. Hopefully you'll share in the comments your favorite things or join up on a Discord and hang out and talk there. But I'm excited to have you guys here to talk about such a legend in the industry for sure. Welcome. But I want to say thank you to Trevor first for bringing Ambassador Media to come in and help me put this together.
No problem. Well, as I said, I am completely and totally honored. I wish it was under better circumstances, but is there a better way for us to celebrate such an important life and career?
Yeah, absolutely. And Trevor, you came to me to talk to do this because you knew I love them as well, and you were so knowledgeable, and I couldn't wait to talk to you and just have a fun conversation. And John, I'm so glad that you are here to join in and add to it as well. I have so many questions. I love the man as a producer. I watched his movies, but that wasn't why I gravitated towards him. Like, because I produced as well. So like I went for that. So like I can't wait to hear more about from the fans' perspective from the movies and where you guys are coming from. What does Roger Corman mean to you guys? If we could start there.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, the first movies that I really dove into were his Poe films. And even though I knew him as a name and as a pop culture figure, those were like really in my wheelhouse because I've, as long as I can remember, I've been a fan of Vincent Price, and like Edgar Allan Poe was some of the first like adult literature that I read as a kid. And those movies are just so up my alley, like so beautifully produced, dramatic, with great performances, and they're clearly the most A pictures that he made during his career, and it just showed the breadth of his talent. He's able to use the set of The Raven and turn it into The Terror over a weekend. And even if that movie is that movie is bad,
because it's like 12 directors.
Yes.
Sorry, John.
Literally 7, but
Yeah.
2 of those were Jack Nicholson and Francis Ford Coppola. So, but yeah, and after I just devoured the Poe films and The Man with X-Ray Eyes, which is just like such a nightmare, horror film that's just like visually brilliant. Also, when I found The Man with X-Ray Eyes, it put together like a musical puzzle for me because Rob Zombie uses it in a sample in Hellbilly Deluxe. And so, because I'm a huge Rob Zombie and White Zombie fan, finding like the obscure films and audio from trailers that he uses in his songs is always like a treat. Even though Man with X-Ray Eyes isn't obscure, to me at 14 when I first heard Rob Zombie, it was. Mm-hmm. And then like the final piece in the puzzle for me was when I watched The Intruder, which is probably my favorite film that he directed, and I think is just like really an unheralded masterpiece and just so vital. And I think the term that's been used to describe it most often is incendiary, because it's just like still a trenchant commentary on race relations in America, on how bad actors can infiltrate a community to stir up violence and discord where it wasn't originally to be an impediment to progress. And it also shows the acting breadth and talent that William Shatner had, even as
I was going to bring that up.
Yeah. So he's incredible.
This, Mick. If anybody says anything negative about Shatner, you just say Intruder.
Yeah.
Which was first rule.
In fact, like I feel like he kind of left acting after this. He was like, you know what, I did so good, I'm just going to kind of continue on with a different character.
Mm-hmm.
No, that was a fantastic film. That's one I often recommend. So coming from Corman and who he was, I love a lot of his early stuff, and that, because that was the breadth of like, his independent work and putting just all these films putting out. And like, again, like I'm a geek for budgets, especially film budgets. So like that, he was my guy for that. And then but I love those stories you get throughout from everybody who worked from him, even below the line, saying, okay, this is the stuff he had us do or wanted us to do. And it was so creative. Like his mind's, I've heard him in interviews, not that he doesn't think he's creative, but like, and he had like the practical mind to like save money and such, but the creativity behind it and the things you use for your sets that are cheaper than, buying these other supplies, like, and how fast you can move. Like, it just always astonished me. And the fact that he put out caliber movies like this and the Poe films and such, those weren't, to me, those were not slouch movies. Those were very good cinema. So, but Trevor, I want to throw it out to you too. Like, I mean, what did Roger Corman mean to you?
Well, I mean, he meant a lot, but I'd have to say my first taste of Corman was a Generation X Famous Monsters of Filmland moment, which of course was Fangoria. And I don't know, I'm sure you all can remember this. I know you can, Mick. The amazing amount of publicity around Carnosaur, which was produced by Corman and to many people is still to this day a knockoff of Jurassic Park. But with that, being the Fangoria and several other publications at that time heralded that film enough and wrote in-depth articles. I mean, I was the geek like many of us that, I carried a Fangoria around in my car because I was always reading it. That gave me the background on Corman. But being part of that generation also, like Sunday afternoon network television was licensing so many old Corman properties. But at that time, the name didn't mean anything. But for me, Carnosaur is what put it together. I mean, there's so much to love about Corman. Also, another thing that I think is very, very important that people understand that when he went on his own for New World, he was a distributor for Armacord. He was a distributor for Kurosawa films, Truffaut films. This was his love. His taste in movies was always art house.
Yeah.
And he put so much money into doing that. And that's, it's funny to me because you hear New World, and a lot of times there's kind of a derogatory term, oh yeah. But you look at what they distributed. Oh my God. Unbelievable.
And I think he's somebody who knew the value of both employee and customer loyalty. There's been this trend over the last, I don't know, a decade at least, of just like finance bros dominating the media landscape and what and what like corporate maneuvers are. So like real quick, I don't know if you guys play D&D, but the Wizards of the Coast debacle, where they had this sort of like gentleman's agreement with people who would modify the D&D game set and rules to make their own content, and if that became popular, it was okay for Wizards of the Coast to incorporate that content into the D&D universe and to publish on, and they wouldn't do a copyright strike on those independent creators. Well, when Wizards of the Coast was acquired in a corporate takeover, they reversed that, and that created, a lot of storm and drang among the fan community, as you might understand, and sort of like was a public relations debacle. But that doesn't matter to people sitting on a corporate board who are going to be gone in 3 years anyway.
No.
For Roger Corman, he knew that these 22-year-old directors, aspiring actors, and screenwriters like loved Fellini, Bergman, and Truffaut. So the fact that he was the guy bringing that stuff to the United States made these like film students love him and have loyalty to him. And I think that's something that you don't value anymore, and especially for somebody who was like an out and out leftist, like that kind of thing was important to him. And for somebody who was constantly like, give me more boobs and explosions, he still had this like friendly like movie uncle persona.
I gotta say though, a lot of that to me, when it came to Roger Corman and seeing like his career, and that's the one thing that I really like. My takeaway from it was like watching his career more than watching his movies. And going back and checking things out, like when he was at the helm, you got a good movie, like a really true like remembered cinematically movie. You remember Vincent Price in those movies. You remember, when he was really on for it, not just distributing. You got some good movies, and I think honestly, a lot of what we get in the studio level, when we talk about low budget movies, we see a lot in horror, see a lot in different things, but they're not the highly marketed movies. You can thank Roger Corman for that, because that is his model. That's where they make their money, these studios, not these overblown blockbusters. This is where they make them. They put out hundreds of these a year all over the world, and that's what Corman gave to us. Like he changed the studio system in a beautiful way, and evolved it in such a great way that I think it's a little bit of a detriment now that studios have adopted it, but the indie scene has definitely thrived because of him.
Well, it's kind of funny, but if you look at, how Corman got into film, it's this kind of weird Americana version of the French New Wave. So I think him being a major in engineering played out a lot to how he looks at film. And that's very important. But he didn't want to be an engineer. He was enamored by film. But it wasn't till he started writing for the newspaper for Stanford College, the Stanford Daily, as a movie reviewer. And the only reason why he did it was he got free movie tickets. He fell in love more and more. And then when he graduated, he went right in and got whatever job he could, which was literally in the mailroom of 20th Century Fox. And, that goes, he's in Paris, whatever. He then meets, Samuel Z. Arkoff, and is just, one thing I do want to point out about Roger Corman. I have to say that I hope he had a big smile on his face when The Gunfighter was released on Criterion, because from being in the mailroom, he became a story analyst. And eventually, after just like hating everything, he was given a script called The Big Gun. He didn't do a rewrite, but he took extensive notes. He loved it. It eventually was rebranded The Gunfighter, and most of his notes appear in that film. Gets no credit for it. So, he just had to work all the time, and he understood, sometimes you just have to do somebody a favor.
Yeah, the Gunfighter, like a lot of other hands went into that movie, but I think that's one of the great underrated Westerns. Like, I know it's loved enough to have a Criterion release, but I put it above High Noon, which it shares a lot of like thematic and aesthetic similarities with.
I don't know if I can agree with that. High Noon.
Yeah. High Noon's great, but I think the Gunfighter is a better movie. But
fair. Opinions vary for sure. It was a great film. He was putting out some really poignant films, but I think he gets remembered for these like B movie king just for his low budgets. And I don't like his filmmaking though was just, and we're talking about it now. That's the best thing is like, I wish that's my biggest takeaway for most people is like, go back and if you really are a film fan, and with the countless podcasters who review movies now, I'm guessing you are, really analyze his films and how much these great filmmakers that he set forth, they all came from him school, that like we still watch their movies and they praise him. Like we see Jack Nicholson cry about him 50 years later, 60 years later, that's how much he met.
Bucket of Blood is one of the funniest horror movies ever made. And it has like lefty art community jokes in it that comedians would be like regurgitating again and again for like the next 50 years. Like there's a wheatgrass smoothie joke in it, which is something from like a Seinfeld episode. Yep. So like it's decades ahead of its time and like legit funny, and one of the only times we get to see Dick Miller in a lead role, and he's great. Yeah, so I would say like put The Intruder and Bucket of Blood on a double bill, and you see the breadth of Corman's filmmaking.
Well, Trevor, so with not just with what he meant to you, but like with his films, what are some outstanding films for you besides what we've talked about already, especially later in his life that really, for you?
Well, actually, it's interesting, I've been focusing a lot on his directing recently, and that it just amazingly surprised me. One of his earliest films, The Beast with a Million Eyes, is, there's so little of any monster in the film, but that script is crazy tight, and there's an amazing amount of tension without having, virtually any effects. The payoff is actually the biggest downer of the movie. But for me, when I really started loving what Roger Corman was doing, as far as looking back, is connected to my love of the American New Wave. So his, Women in Cages trilogy, which was made by the legendary Jack Hill, Jackson County Jail, his counterculture films. He was very enamored by counterculture. And he stopped directing, in my opinion, because he did several counterculture films. He did one with Peter Fonda, and I think he literally came to the understanding, like, wait, I understand this new generation. I see where it is marketable. They need a voice, but I'm going to step back. And I want these people to start directing. And that's when he starts hand-picking people for his, his stock group, which he did. That's another, in certain ways, he influenced the American auteur. You look at Martin Scorsese as an example, because New World was a tight-knit family, and kind of worked on that idea that, as long as you worked your way up, or, he had total confidence that you could do something, he was going to allow you to do an exploitation film, but do it a little differently. He very active producer. A lot of people will complain about the fact that when it came to money, he always would say, no, you're perfectly capable of this. That's why I picked you. And trust me, you'll do this. And with Ron Howard, he also said, if you do this, Grand Theft Auto, which, is a legendary film, you'll never have to work for me again, which was short for, if you do it right, you're going places.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes him such a fascinating figure, like in the history of Hollywood, in that he was exploiting these young, talented people because they were desperate for work, but it was an honest bargain. Like he made it known to the Scorseses or the Joe Dantes or the Ron Howards, or the Stephanie Rothmans, Amy Holden Jones, and Penelope Spheres, who could not get work as women directors in Hollywood, that they're like, this is an opportunity for you on your way to better things. And whereas other producers of A pictures would try and keep those talented people like under their thumb, and especially during the classic studio system in Hollywood, where you would be contracted to work for X amount of money a week, or be blackballed.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, like, I was saying earlier, like, he evolved the indie movement of filmmaking. Like, it's before his stance on this, like you said, and I even exploiting, I think, is too far of a term, because this is how you start in the industry, right? You got to start from the bottom and you work your way up, and that even then, the bottom can mean you're directing some crap, and they did get their chance to shine. That is opportunity, which is, didn't exist at that time, is just opening up over the last 30 years with an emphasis on the last 15, I'd say, to a point where indie is becoming stronger than the Hollywood system, in my opinion, with, places like A24 and other indie chains coming out like that are distributing as well. All to this man. We all owe it to this man, in my opinion.
And the early pictures of Scorsese or Bogdanovich, they wouldn't be as good if they didn't go to the Corman school. Like Last Picture Show is a masterpiece. But because he had this, like, all this sometimes uncredited experience working with Corman, he was able to hit the ground running. And same thing with Coppola or Monty Hellman or what have you.
Well, to add on to that, I mean, there are stories galore, but Martin Scorsese took the script of Mean Streets to Corman after doing Boxcar Bertha. And Corman thought it was great, but Corman, being a person who was looking to make money, actually looked him in the face and said, the only thing I would change, and it's going to make a difference in funding you, is can we make the characters black? He was in a blaxploitation mode at that point. Of course, nobody ever said no to Corman. So Scorsese basically goes, let me think about this. And he did, and Corman did not back it. But Martin Scorsese has, said many times that the Corman school helped him make Mean Streets the way he wanted to. That he applied a lot of what Corman was doing and a lot of what he just learned literally by Corman going, I trust you, here. He did. He was always, a lot of I don't call him a movie mogul, because you think of them being, loud and hypey, and they'll throw anybody under the bus for money. He seemed like he was always like an excited little kid, but he was also amazingly humble. I mean, we've all seen interviews with Corman in which they say, how do you feel about being called the king of bees? And he just very nicely says, well, I don't really agree with it, but that's what it is. He doesn't, he never, wanted to make a stink out of like, I want to be known as a filmmaker. He's very humble in his own way.
Yeah, and his, we've talked about his tastes before, but he really has like a classic like film student taste in movies, like the Truffauts and the Bergmans, and his favorite movie of all time is Battleship Potemkin, which is like film school 101 kind of stuff, but I just find it so endearing that that's where his tastes lie, and he's so in love with the medium that he was making. And like, as we get further and further away from people who like movies or the people who are actually funding these movies, it's really is kind of a monument of a bygone era, that people who are passionate about this form were the ones making it. And yeah, like Trevor said, he was somebody who had a hand in making the American new wave. Like he gave a voice to these people. Like, The Intruder even is like as close to an American new wave movie as I think you can have.
Yeah, I mean, that was him truly at his most indie.
Yeah.
Because he took the script to Arkoff. Arkoff never said no, and Arkoff just flat out said, "We will not do this."
Yeah.
And nobody will do it. So he and his brother mortgaged their homes to make that film.
The classic independent filmmaker blunder of
exactly.
Coppola did it on Apocalypse Now. Yeah, except Coppola went insane. Corman directed a movie next week and turned that bit of red from The Intruder into the black, by the end of like Tuesday business,
Well, but I don't think I wouldn't call him a mogul, but an executive for sure. At his heart, he's a film fan, right? He loves movies, and that is a huge thing. And that's, I think, one of the themes that we see in all of his slate of filmmakers that have been inspired by him or mentored. He mentored. They were all like huge film fans, and they're still self-proclaimed. They talk about it constantly. So like, we get it, and striking out and doing the independent circuit and stuff like that. Like he just got how this worked. Like, yeah, you're right. Engineering comes into it because he engineered this whole damn thing, right? And I'm talking about the business side of it. So, but the fact that he's a film fan is what added that special element. Every one of his movies are made for film fans, and that's a beautiful thing. We don't get that a lot with filmmakers. We don't get that a lot. We definitely don't get that with studios.
Yeah.
They're throwing anything at a wall, and who will pay for it. So it is nice when you have somebody go out there and he's making movies. Yes, there is a money component. He wants to save money. That may not be what we all love to hear, but it's great for the film industry, save whatever you can. But for him to step in and be a film fan and really at least put stuff out that you can enjoy, some stuff in between. But
and I Alan Arkish, the director of Rock and Roll High School, has talked a lot about his experience with Corman and the Corman School. And one thing that I think about a lot, beyond like really nitty gritty practical stuff, like if you start shooting on the far side of a hill, you'll get like 20 minutes more of daylight than if you shoot at the other end where the shadows are going to come sooner. But one thing that Arkish said that Corman told him was like, my boy, it takes just as much time to do a good setup as a bad one. Just trying to work out how to finish a movie over the weekend. And I think that speaks to his philosophy of how to properly budget a movie. Like, it's not just like, on War of the Satellites using Barca loungers inside the rocket ship. But it's like, if you plan correctly, you can do this. Like, okay, maybe you'll have to borrow cars and have the actors like schlep equipment up this hill or whatever. But it doesn't have to be this desperate scrape. Like, I don't know who said it first, but fix it in pre, like make sure you have all your ducks in a row before you start filming. You're just going to save a lot of money.
Who said that? Was every producer ever.
Yeah.
Ever, yeah.
Trust me. That is, fix it in post is that nobody likes that. And nobody says that. That's the best part. Like, the only time I've ever heard fix it in post on a set, from PA all the way up, has always been jokingly. Oh, we'll fix it in post.
Okay.
We'll fix it, because it's always like, get it done now. Like, why are we fixing this? Like, yeah, every producer ever. So I will tell you that is one that for me, like, I loved, and even Hitchcock was really good at that. In fact, a lot of Corman's qualities you saw in like the greats, and that's why I shine that light in filmmaking on him for that being that great, is because, and I don't know whether he had influenced them, but I know he didn't influence Hitchcock. So Hitchcock was very much about that. Get it in pre. His rap books were so perfect that by the time they got out of pre-production and going into production, you could film Hitchcock film just by going by everything he said in his rap books and what he wanted, and you would get an exact Hitchcock film without him. So, like, that was always a legend. And Corman was the same. Like every, being able to look at his budgets and stuff and see where he comes into it and what he's trying to change. And he was so wonderful at this. And that's where my praise comes in. I know we're going to the movies and such, but my praise comes in as a filmmaker. That's where he inspired me the most. That's why I come from that angle. But I love what you guys are saying too, as film fans of his movies and what he was able to do during them in film. Like it's so intriguing to me, these little tidbits.
You mentioned mogul. Sorry, you go ahead, John.
No, just an example that sorry, but the movies that made me recently released the 2019 interview they did with Roger and Julie Corman. And like, it's great. Everybody should go listen to it. But my favorite story about him trying to find ways of making money is, when you get to the fall, that's when the drive-in season is winding down because, nobody wants to go out to the drive-ins when it's cold. And so he's like, all right, I'm trying to program like a final weekend. I just acquired Cries and Whispers. But what are we gonna program it with? Because a drive-in needs to be a double feature. How about Caged Heat? So, and he only did it for one drive-in, and that was in Tennessee. And it made money, like not a lot of money, but it made money. And so like after that, he did get a letter from Bergman thanking him for showing his movie to people who would have otherwise never had seen it. And I think if you look at a lot of Bergman's films, he might come across as like a dour, very self-serious guy, but he from people who knew him, he had a great sense of humor. He loved all sorts of movies, from American commercial film to independent film. And so he knew the value of putting his films in front of people who would not go seek them out. And so because of Roger Corman, people who went to see Caged Heat in a drive-in double feature also got to see a Bergman movie. And, that's part of his legacy is, bringing these like foreign masters to the masses and making a profit on it. Like, you can be artsy and pretentious and smart and obscure and esoteric, but you can still make money at it.
Yeah. What I was going to say is bringing it back to the movie mogul idea. We always talk a lot about Roger Corman and money, but there are some major decisions that he had to make because working with somebody like Samuel Z. Arkoff was starting to really, mess with his psyche. The only film that did not make money for him was The Intruder, the one that everybody turned down, and it was his passion project. He then, went back, and did things. And then he did this wonderful film called The Trip. And The Trip had Dennis Hopper, just insane number of people. But basically, Peter Fonda, of course. And there's so many more. And so without The Trip, which American International messed with, because they didn't ask Corman. So at the end of the film, there's like a break in the, like Shattered, because they weren't going to release it if they felt it was a pro-acid film. He was very upset about that, but typical Corman, whatever. With the success of The Trip came a script called Easy Rider. And literally all those people who were connected with The Trip, not all of them, but a good portion, were all on board for Easy Rider. And he took it to Arkoff, and Arkoff was, this cigar smoking, big ass mogul, really wasn't, but he didn't trust the people who were in The Trip, because these were people that Corman had picked up from his action with the counterculture. And Corman made a deal with Arkoff that as soon as, this film like goes over budget in a way that it makes the shooting schedule longer, we will drop this film. Well, guess what? They did. They shopped the film around. The film was eventually picked up. It was made. BBS Films, that's an entire movement based around that, would not exist without The Trip. And that was the chord that really, hit Corman. And he's like, I'm going out on my own,
Yeah,
because
he
you didn't see that, this film did this amazingly well, and this is going to be, big. And, that's what,
he famously did not like to be told what to do.
oh yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
a lot of his business decisions were based on someone he didn't agree with telling him something and him going in the other direction. And he traces that back to his time in the Navy, where he claims he must have set a record for the most demerits that a seaman ever earned, because he was just getting tired of being ordered around by people he didn't agree with. So he took that mentality to his filmmaking, and that's why New World exists.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that, honestly, that to me is a brilliant philosophy. I love that.
Yeah.
He struck out, and that's the thing. Like, he broke away. He wasn't afraid to do that. He wasn't afraid to say, okay, well, then I'll just go do it myself. Like, you're not going to do it my way, or like the way I can't do it the way I want. I'll do it myself. And, with that type of mentality, not just being able to make those movies that he did, being able to tell those tales of societal issues, racial issues, things like that, at a time where that's not popular at all. And often mainstream Hollywood wasn't, they were on the side, but not on the side, like, to be able to do that and still make such a deep career of it. That's astounding, man. 98 years old.
Yeah.
This man was 98 years old, and everything he's given to this community.
The voice of the youth.
Well,
He chased the voice of the youth, and that was something that meant a lot to him.
Yeah, for someone who's, for someone who's born in the 20s, to make his business model off of what's 12 to 22-year-olds are going to see, I think is pretty remarkable, because even if a lot of his most profitable movies were like rip-offs or just trend chasing, he was able to stay on the pulse of what those trends were, or stay ahead of them and predict what people actually wanted to see. So, okay, it's a Star Wars ripoff or whatever, but this is what people are going to pay money for right now. And he was able to capitalize on that, both with his business savviness, his taste, but also his ability to, turn his filmmaking ship around on a dime and adjust to the market. Like, eventually that ran out when, home video changed and such, but he was still making sci-fi channel movies into his 90s. He stayed around. He kept making movies for a long time,
and he kept being involved in them.
Yeah,
I mean, I've seen so many videos of him, producing, and there's he could be working on up to 10 or 12 movies at any given time. But he worked kind of like a district manager. You were not going to be alone. He was going to pay his visits, and he would go on set and, help you tighten things up, and that's remarkable. So his life was completely cinema.
Absolutely. And gentlemen, before we start wrapping up, I wanted to go around with some final thoughts. What about him makes you want to speak today? What about him, not just everything we talked about, but on a personal level, he must have spoken to for us all to get together, and maybe a takeaway or something that you have from him? John, I want to start with you on that one.
Sure. He served as a mentor to some of my favorite filmmakers, and just the way that they continued to speak about him was with such reverence and respect. And, as much as I love movies, it is an industry replete with stories of terrible people in charge treating actors, directors, and everyone below the line terribly. But this is somebody who refused to do that, maintained a sterling reputation for all his life, and just went forward with a business practices that were moral choices, and it shows that it's not impossible. And from a personal perspective, he gave some of my heroes their greatest roles. I'll love Vincent Price and William Shatner till the day I die, and to see him direct them in The Intruder, or for Vincent Price in the Poe films, Vincent Price painted red in Mask of the Red Death is going to live in my brain forever. And I have Roger to thank for that. So thank you, Roger.
Awesome. Trevor, how about you?
Number one, I just want to point out, and I've been kind of like, trying to fill in the gaps, is Roger Corman was an amazing director. But for me, it has a lot more to do with what he produced, and in some cases directed. But I'll go as far to say that the most progressive and greatest American film movement, the American New Wave in the 1970s, Roger Corman, if not made that possible, gave these amazing filmmakers the tools and also the confidence to go out there and do what they wanted. And, there's so much you can say about Roger Corman, but to this day, I think that's the most important thing. He influenced movies, his people didn't even do. But yeah, that's what I love the most about Roger Corman.
Yeah, beautiful sentiments, guys. One thing I will say for me that really meant a lot was I learned a lot from Roger Corman, especially reading his books and seeing him in interviews and watching his movies. From a filmmaking standpoint, one big thing I always took away from him that I wish was more adopted, and I think is more so now today than it was in recent years in indie, is trust. That man had so much trust in everyone that worked with him. Now he could crack the whip, he wanted what he wanted, but he trusted everybody to go out and get the job done, because like you said, sometimes we'd be doing 12 movies at a time. You can't do that all on your own, and he trusted his people, and that's a big thing in getting anything done. It's a collaborative art. And if you're not collaborating in the right way or trusting your people to do their jobs or hiring the best people for it, you're doing yourself a disservice. And he's a testament to that. So trust your people, and that was a big thing I took away from him. And it shines, like his film love shines throughout. And I appreciate you guys doing this with me and sending this tribute to Roger Corman, somebody we love very much. And before we go, why don't you guys tell a little bit more about what you guys got going on coming up, and we'll everything is linked down below, though. You can go check them out.
I co-host a podcast called Popcorn Eschaton with my good friend Scott Thorough. It's on the Zebras in America feed. We talk about religion and politics in movies, whether that's in the text of the movie, like Last Temptation of Christ, or sometimes you have to read into it to get into the religious messaging, like in the 36th Chamber of Shaolin, which Trevor was on to discuss with Scott and I. So it's fun to get into those films. And most recently, we've talked about Only Yesterday and My Neighbor Totoro, and we have more Ghibli films coming up on the slate.
Awesome. I cannot wait to check that out. Fantastic. Thank you so much, John, for joining in.
My pleasure.
And I can't wait to check out your show. And guys, go check it out. It's linked below. Also, go check out Ambassador Media and Radio by this man, Trevor, right here. Trevor, you want to tell him a little bit about it?
Ambassador Radio is available online at ambassadorradio.org. It's a music show, looks at the B-side of music history. I've been doing radio for about 25 years and not making a penny on it, and I'm still happy. So, but I've got a lot of things in the fire. We'll see. Some growth and all kind of stuff. So I'm just thank you again for having me on, and especially doing anything Corman centric, because it's just an honor to talk about the man.
Yes, and we are actually going to be doing more Corman tributes in the future. We're going to do a week dedicated to the man, where all of our shows incorporate his movies or him in some way. And Trevor and I are going to be working on maybe doing a 3-part series where we talk about different aspects of Corman's life. And I love being able to come on here and share stories and just talk about the man in general. Rest in peace, Roger Corman, and our condolences go to your family and friends. Thank you guys again. Check out the Scene Snobs. Hit like, hit subscribe, hit that bell for other great shows like this. So go check that out. We do have a charity event going on tomorrow night, May 17th. If you can join in, we're doing a Casters for a Cause charity script read of Scream, and it is to benefit Haunters Against Hate, which is an LGBTQIA plus organization that is is surrounded. Their mission is to help children in the community, and with bullying and things like that, and building awareness and such, and a lot of information. Fantastic organization. You can go check out the links down below, read about them, but go check out the script read. But the GoFundMe is live all month. So if you're watching this in May, please go check out the GoFundMe. But we do charity events every couple of months. If you want, follow us, and maybe you can check out the future ones and what other charities we'll be doing. Thank you guys again. Appreciate you, John. Appreciate you, Trevor. Thank you all for watching. And until next time, remember to be kind, stay classy, and take care of yourselves, because that's important. Bye.